My condo was my sanctuary, a quiet refuge from the city's chaos. For years, the only sounds were the distant hum of traffic and the soft clink of my coffee cup on the balcony. The peace here was the reason I chose this building, this community. I believed I'd found a permanent haven. Then, one day, the silence was shattered. It started with a deep, relentless thudding from the apartment above. Not footsteps. Something heavier, more primal, shaking the concrete itself. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe furniture moving? Renovations? But the noise didn't stop. It went on for hours, invading every corner of my home. Soon the stomping was joined by guttural screams, raw, anguished, erupting at all hours. The combination was unbearable. The stomps a physical assault, the screams an emotional one. My sanctuary had been invaded. One evening, the stomping was so intense, a picture frame fell and shattered. The sound was a constant earthquake, making normal life impossible. I couldn't read, couldn't hold a conversation, couldn't even think. The chaos from above dictated the rhythm of my life. My peace was gone, replaced by a relentless, unpredictable cacophony. I remember staring at the ceiling, wondering how long I could endure this. The question began to form. What do you do when your peace is stolen? How do you reclaim your sanctuary when it's no longer yours? That was the moment I knew everything had changed. After days of unending noise, I decided to act. I believed a polite conversation would solve the problem. I knocked on their door, met by a couple in their late 60s. Calmly, I explained the constant stomping and screaming. Their response was immediate and cold. "It's our adult son, he has severe disabilities, we're protected by law." No apology, no offer to help, just a wall of legal jargon. The message was clear: their rights mattered, mine did not. I left feeling stunned and dismissed. Over the next weeks, I tried again. Polite notes, hallway conversations. Each time, I was met with the same phrase: reasonable accommodation. The law meant to protect was now a shield for disregard. There was no empathy, no willingness to coexist. Their interpretation of the law erased everyone else's rights. A deep sense of injustice took root. I realized this wasn't just about noise, it was about respect, and the lack of it. The lines between neighbor and adversary had been drawn. Weeks dragged into months. My home became a source of anxiety. I woke to stomping, dreaded coming home, and lost sleep to the screams. The noise was inescapable, a form of torture eroding my health. I became irritable, exhausted, a shadow of myself. But I wasn't alone. My neighbors were suffering too. An elderly woman hid at the library. A young couple sent their baby away on weekends. We were all prisoners in our own homes. We shared stories of sleepless nights and rattling walls. The promise of a peaceful community felt like a lie. Our well-being was held hostage by one family's refusal to acknowledge our pain. We were united by frustration and helplessness. The rules we'd trusted to protect us seemed meaningless. We were living in a state of siege. Knowing I wasn't alone, I turned to the Homeowners Association. I documented every incident, filed a formal complaint, and hoped for action. The HOA's response? A generic letter, no effect. The property manager sounded weary. The board was afraid of a lawsuit. The family threatened legal action, citing fair housing laws. The HOA was paralyzed by fear, abandoning their duty to the rest of us. I'd followed every rule, appealed to every authority. Nothing changed. The noise continued, louder and more defiant. The system felt broken, the laws twisted to create injustice. The parents' claims left the HOA powerless. My frustration grew. I felt abandoned by the very organization meant to protect us. Were dozens of families expected to live in misery for one? I realized, if I wanted justice, I couldn't rely on the HOA alone. I needed another way. The fight for peace had to become a fight for accountability. Ignored by the HOA, I started investigating. If reasonable accommodation was their shield, maybe there were other cracks. I pored over condo bylaws and house rules. My first breakthrough: occupancy limits. No more than 2 people in a 1-bedroom unit. The couple and their adult son made 3, a clear violation. This wasn't about disability, it was a breach of contract. Next, I checked property records. The couple weren't the owners. The unit belonged to a relative out of state. Our rules required a formal lease and registration for non-owner occupied units. Another violation: They weren't registered tenants. Armed with these facts, I felt renewed purpose. This was no longer just about noise. It was about systematic rule-breaking. Their argument for special treatment weakened. The conflict shifted from a sensitive issue to a straightforward case of non-compliance. Now, I had leverage. With evidence in hand, I rallied my neighbors. I drafted a letter outlining the two violations: occupancy and unregistered tenancy, leaving out noise and disability. I went door to door. The response was overwhelming. Neighbors were eager to join. We became an organized coalition. We gathered signatures for a petition and prepared a formal presentation for the next HOA meeting. Our approach was professional and focused on rule enforcement. The night of the meeting, a dozen homeowners stood together. We presented our evidence calmly and methodically. The board could no longer ignore us. We demanded the association enforce the rules we all agreed to. The power dynamic shifted. The board faced a united community, not just a lone complainer. We were no longer powerless. The HOA board, faced with our united front and clear evidence, had to act. The board president promised to consult the HOA's attorney. A week later, the attorney confirmed the violations. Occupancy and tenancy rules had been broken. The reasonable accommodation argument didn't excuse these breaches. The HOA was obligated to enforce the bylaws. They sent a certified letter to the unit's legal owner, demanding compliance within 30 days. The focus was now on black and white rule violations, not noise or disability. The family upstairs doubled down, accusing the HOA of discrimination. But their arguments fell flat. The rules applied to everyone. The HOA's legal counsel was prepared. The family's shield was broken. Their fight was now with the community's legal structure, not just me. The 30-day notice passed. The family didn't comply. The HOA, backed by our community, didn't back down. Fines were levied against the unit's owner, increasing weekly. The out-of-state owner was now financially responsible. The daily fines mounted, turning a distant problem into a costly liability. Faced with escalating fines and the threat of a lien, the owner acted. The family was given notice to vacate. One Saturday, 6 months after it began, a moving truck appeared. I watched them leave, not with triumph, but relief. The legal process had worked. Justice, though slow and hard-won, had prevailed. The day after they moved out, I woke to silence. No stomping, no screams, just peace. I made coffee and listened to the quiet. The tension melted away. My sanctuary was restored. This ordeal taught me, justice isn't easy, but it's worth fighting for. Evidence, patience, and unity matter more than anger. The real power was in our community coming together. Alone, we were helpless. Together, we were unstoppable. Our unity gave the HOA courage to act. This wasn't a personal dispute. It was a collective demand for fairness. Today, my condo is peaceful again. The experience renewed my faith in ordinary people's power to create change. Peace, once lost, is all the sweeter when reclaimed.